I wanted to thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
How does it feel to have this album out into the world right now?
It's such a huge relief. We've been working on this one a long time, like the last 5 years, I guess it's been,
Mhm.
and we a lot of the songs were written pretty quickly, but we were just sort of just fine tuning them for so long, and then it was all written, and we went into the studio. The drums were recorded, I believe, at the very beginning of 2025. So we spent that year recording everything, and then we had to wait on the artwork and layout and everything. So it's just awesome that it's finally here. We have not gotten our physical copies yet, though, so we should get those in a few weeks, and that'll really be a huge load off once we're actually holding the thing in our hands. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, since it's been a while since you've had an album out, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to hear you for the first time. What do you
Mhm.
want the biggest takeaway from this album to be?
I think just the way that the music flows and immerses you, and like um I don't know if there's a specific takeaway we wanted. It's sort of our whole concept as a band is sort of like it's more in line with the leave it up to the listener
Listen. Hmm.
interpretation. But I think these songs were definitely very uniquely crafted, and we took a lot of what we had done before and condensed it down um, into a more sort of concise package in a way, despite, all the dynamics and
Sure.
the ways riffs flow together and the tempo changes and things like that. But I think we've really like honed in on what we had sort of been fleshing out on the previous two albums.
And I wanted to ask you, what was the spark that led to the making of this album? Was there a certain idea in mind when you went forward into making this album?
Yeah, there was a little bit of an idea. You know, we we had basically just continued writing songs, which is what we did with the last one. We
Mm.
had finished the first album, and then I think uh, Pierce and Kelly had already written some more songs, and it was very similar to that. We had finished the last album, and then Pierce and Kelly were already writing. I think Eli was had something too from before, maybe that didn't get used, but so that was all good. We already had some bare bones to work with, but at the same time, yeah, a more driving idea, I guess, was sort of what I was saying in the previously. It's just like we really honed in on the sort of the more unique things we were doing as far
Sure.
as the bridging strange dynamics together, and like just really trying to find really unique sort of sounds and harmonies and writing those for a while, um, as opposed to like doing a certain kind of riff and then sort of taking it to a totally different kind. It's like we
Sure.
wanted it to we were very much more deliberate and trying to have it all make sense um, this time around.
And this band is not a one-stop shop, meaning that you're not locked into a set place. This band can
No,
go from
absolutely
very
not.
hard to melodic to, just every type of passage you can imagine. And I think that's what's so spectacular about the band. I wanted to ask you, when you're creating, how important is you to avoid predictability?
It's for us, it's very important. There's always going to be a few times you're like, you have a riff and it just naturally goes into something else, another riff that's perfect. And yeah, maybe it's predictable, but if it works, it works. Um, the the unpredictable side of it kind of came from when we're trying to like, we have two riffs that we know are gonna work together and flow together, but it's like, how do we get from one to the other? And then so we'll start writing a transition, and then we realize maybe we really like the way the transition feels, so then we just start expanding on that. And I think that's where a lot of the sort of more interesting uh, parts come from.
I wanted to ask you in the making of this album, anyone that hears it can hear the complexity of the album. I wanted to ask you how much time was spent on tracks from the time they were born until they reached vinyl. How many changes do songs go through?
Well, yeah, there was actually we had started working on one of I think it was Inseverable uh around, I think that was even before Deconsecrate came out, maybe, or we were just working on some riffs that Eli had, and we had something good for a while, and then we didn't work on it for like a year and a half.
Wow.
So there's sort of that sort of thing, and when we came back to it, we had completely changed it,
Mm-hmm.
basically. But as far as the other tracks, you know, uh, Pierce wrote, I think we started off on what's now called Architects of the Faded.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had basically written the bones for that track. And then we basically just, if there's anything major, we'll usually address it right away as far as the structure goes. But then when we're jamming it in the room together, it does go through a lot of just minor changes where we're playing it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And we really just feel it out, and where there's going to be certain nuances for things. Um, for the little nuances like that, we're not sitting back and like, um, listening and pointing out to things like, oh, this
Sure.
should be here and I should do this here. I mean, of course, there is a little bit of that, but most of these little things have just been sort of, I don't know, a good way to say it, like melted in over
Mm-hmm.
time. So
Sure.
literally right up to when we were recording it, sometimes in the studio, that's when you get your best ideas, especially for me too. Like for this album and the previous album, I just learn the guitar riffs, and then it's usually when I'm sitting in front of the computer and just recording my actual tracks that like I have a sort of, I get a different perspective of everything, and then I
Mm-hmm.
just write completely new bass lines. So sort of we did a short tour as sort of in the middle of recording this album,
Oh, wow.
and that was sort of a way to flesh a little more out for the stringed instruments and vocals and things like that. So yeah, it takes time.
And Inseparable is one of the tracks I wanted to speak about. I wanted to ask you because I thought it was such a creative wording. To me, when I hear it, I hear inseparable, and it's kind of in the same vein. I wanted to ask you, as an artist, what are some things that are inseparable for you?
Oh man, some things that are unseverable for me. That's a that's a loaded question with many pathways we could take it, I guess. I mean, just I guess as an artist, yeah, I guess um, you know, having to be separated from the mediums I enjoy working in, like
Mm,
music, obviously.
sure,
Um, yeah, that's like that would be an unseverable facet,
sure,
I would say. Yeah, that track is sort of loosely, each track has a theme, and that one, Inseverable is sort of loosely based on a theme of duality,
sure.
and balance. And so, um, yeah, if I didn't, if I didn't have music, I would lose a lot of balance and who knows,
Absolutely.
who knows what I'd be doing?
Absolutely. And the things we balance, it's almost it's dependent upon what is needed from us on one end or the other. We have
Yeah.
family, we have friends, we have the things we love to do, and to balance them all, sometimes we have to take away from one when another needs it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about another track that was really interesting to me, and that was a tarnished Nexus. I wanted to ask you in the track, what is the Nexus?
So that's one of those things, it's kind of up to you, man. It's like, I think my personal interpretation of that track is sort of like, um, maybe the nexus of where all your power and passion comes from, and as you
Mhm.
go through
Sure,
living or not living on whatever planes you're traveling on, you're going to pick up some wear and tear, and that has a lot of implications. But um, yeah, you can look at that any way you want to.
and another important question for me after listening to the album is the closing track is, of course, the title of the album, and it's
Yes.
also the longest track on the album. Did you know upon inception that that was going to be the main focus on that album?
Um, Not necessarily. We knew it was definitely going to be one of the, sort of longer, more spaced out,
Mhm.
epic, quote unquote,
Right.
tracks. We didn't necessarily know it was going to be the closer or anything. But yeah, it just, it ended up out of the six tracks we had, it's like that one is the natural album
Sure.
closer.
And, and listening to the album, we talked about a little bit earlier, you know, there's so much of the content of this is definitely left open to interpreter, but as an interpreter, you definitely try to find a connection between tracks. And,
Yeah.
for me, it seemed like there is a, a loosely woven message behind it all.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know if that was the intent for people to look inside and come up with their own connection through these tracks.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we had our six themes, and it sort of cycles through them all, and then the last track, the title track, it's sort of like an infinity concept. So it's, this the cycle of everything just keeps going. And
Sure. And I wanted to ask you as well, this band puts forth so many different dimensions of art as we spoke about earlier. And you have a sax and clarinet in here. And of course, in in your genre, it's not normally there. I wanted to ask you, what led to the decision to put those instruments on the album?
let's see. Well, I think, Pierce was writing that track, and he knew he wanted a sort of cleaner section in the
Mhm.
middle, and I think he had left it in our drafts, or early on drafts that he had for it. I don't think it was there, and then I think it just sort of sounded natural to him. So I remember
Mhm.
we were listening to, he had programmed in just a MIDI electronic instrument
Sure.
saxophone just to try it out, and he left it in. And yeah, I think the other guys dug that, and so they're like, well, we're doing this now, you
Yeah,
know?
I think the first time I heard something like that was a band called Triumphant. I'm not sure if you've
Yeah,
heard of them before.
I haven't.
Definitely check it out. They provide orchestral instruments into their metal, and
Okay.
it's very when you first hear it, you're like, whoa, because they
Yeah.
it's not like it's not a background passage or a feel part of the song.
Yeah.
It's actually a core driven part of the music.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like, it's definitely it's been done before. I know there's the first time I heard it was early sort of done in this way was on an Isan album. Um and before then there used to be this band from Chicago called Yakuza, and
Hmm.
they also had a saxophone as like one of their main instruments. Um I think if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And but it was just one of those things. It just felt natural there.
Hmm.
And so yeah, we just wanted to leave it there. We had auditioned a few other types of instruments there because like at first we were like, well, maybe we want to get away from the sax because a few other bands have done it before and it doesn't want to be like, oh, they're just doing this thing again. But
Right.
it was just it just kind of naturally fit there. So we just decided to say fuck it and left it in. So some of the things that can't really be explained with words. It's just like, yeah, that's the kind of sound that should go there. Yeah.
And I think one of the amazing elements of the band is that you're able to take all these different styles and not only just make them blend together,
Mhm.
but the way they are in the mix and the way you hear them is just
Mm.
really fantastic. I wanted to ask you, is that something that came naturally to this band?
Yeah, I mean, we're all like, we live and breathe metal, or
Hmm.
it's just it's what we listen to growing up and what we listen to on the regular. So it's just whether it's like chordy black metal or thrashy gallopy stuff or intense tremolo picked stuff. Yeah, it's it's sort of without a second thought, like what type of riff in those sort of technical terms
Sure.
we're playing. It's just sort of like, well, what would the next what would the next succeeding riff feel like? And yeah, it just ends up being, it has facets from all those subgenres.
And you talked about playing some gigs in between the recording of this album. What
Mhm.
songs took traction with the audience?
That is sort of a difficult one to answer. I think people really, we played the first track off of this one, and we
Mhm.
also played a Tarnished Nexus. So the first track is called Pitiless Mechanism, and both of those songs I think did really well, and that's when we kind of knew we had a good thing going with this
Sure.
upcoming album, thankfully. Like, yeah, I think a lot of people really dug that. A lot of people also really like Undaunted
Mhm.
from the previous album, which is the
Yes.
second track on the previous one. Because that has a very graspable like main riff that comes right in, and um it doesn't take a lot to get people moving there, it seems. So
And then speaking of the creativity of the band, I wanted to ask you, were there tracks that didn't make the cut for this album?
not quite. We just sort of really honed in on the six tracks that we did, because it does take such a long time to write these. There may have been a few riffs we were toying around with, I think, that ended up getting cut, but mostly it was just starting with the same basic ideas and just refining them over and over until
Mhm.
we felt they were um, good enough.
And I wanted to ask you, can you take me back in time and tell me how your journey began?
Like
Your
the
musical
band's
journey.
journey, or
No, your
or
journey
me, or
personally.
personally?
Personally.
Oh, personally. Yeah, I mean, I think I was 11. My parents wanted me to get involved in some extracurricular stuff, so I didn't like just, have too much time on my hands over the summer, I think.
Mm,
So they got me some piano lessons, and I didn't really care about it too much at the time.
sure.
But that's basically where it started. And then a couple of years later, a few of my friends were playing guitar, and yeah, one kid was like playing the James Bond theme on guitar, and I thought that was pretty cool. It was like, man, like he's my age and he can play that. Like, I wonder if I can do that. So yeah, that's sort of what got me started there. Oh, I was playing, yeah, and then I actually ended up getting a bass, and I was just sort of because I felt like I was jamming with some friends, and I didn't want to. Guitar seemed like a lot at the time, so I
Sure.
just picked up the bass instead. And then, but back and forth throughout high school, I just kind of did guitar, bass, and keyboards, and learned how to program drums and stuff like that. And just I don't know if so. I had a few different little ways to record things. I had like a 4-track tape recorder that I learned a lot from, like looping things over and over
Mhm.
again into that to like add upon layers and layers of songs. And then also on the PC, there was that sound recorder program, which
Sure.
is just like a very simple little like play, record,
Right.
stop,
Yep.
fast forward. And I would run that through I would like have a drum thing that I'd play on the keyboards or something with my fingers, run that through, and then you could open multiple sound recorders on the computer. So I'd like have one of them playing, loop it through a mixer again with like another instrument layered on top, and then I'd like keep doing that.
Oh, hell yeah.
So that's how I kind of figured out at least how to put instruments together, I
Sure.
guess. Yeah.
And now this amazing album is out. What's the best way to get a hold of this album and any merchandise that you have?
Well, the album is exclusively available through 20 bucks spin. So you can, if you just want a digital copy, you can go to their Bandcamp or their website. Um, and then physical copy through their website is probably best. And then as far as other merch that we have, Enigmatum, we have our own Bandcamp, which has the debut, and it has our some demos, and it also has the isolated bass and drum tracks for the previous album
Wow.
for anyone who wants to nerd out about those. And then we also have a big cartel store, which has a few shirts, and also you can get the CD of the first album on there. And that's all. You can find that through our Instagram or our Facebook, or just message us or email us or something, and we'll get you there.
And what's next for you? What lies ahead? Will you take to the road?
I'm not totally sure yet. We're all sort of in different places in life now, and kind of, we have a lot of different projects going on. I think, so Kelly's doing Seductor, and Pierce is doing a lot of session work. He just finished up some stuff for this band called Forsaken Eternity, which, if you like the melodic side of Enigmatum, you should definitely check out Forsaken Eternity. I have a project called Old Machines that I've been focusing on quite heavily, but yeah, I mean, if someone makes us an offer we can't refuse, then I'm sure we'll be there. But it does take a lot to get us on the road. You know, the nature of the songs, they are pretty complex, and
Sure,
you know, it's
absolutely.
like it just takes a lot for us to dial them in to get them to the point where we feel you know, we'll be making the playing the best version of them we can live.
Absolutely.
But yeah, right now we just want to give this album sort of the focus it uh we feel it deserves right now, and
Sure.
just sort of put you know push it out there to as many people who might be interested as possible.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans, what message would you give them?
Oh man. Um if you got an idea for something cool that you want to do, like whether it's music or something else, just you can't sit on it too long. You know, you can't just sit on it forever. You can't be like a car mechanic and have like 15 cars that need fixing up, you know,
Sure.
you just gotta get it out there. At least get something small out there, and then it'll make the rest of it so much easier. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for creating an album that I think is technically one of the best albums I've heard this year. I
R-
think your writing skills are just top notch, and it made me go back to visit your past catalog, and it's just amazing the work and the talent that is involved in this band. And I look forward to what lies ahead for you, my friend.
Right on. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, I'm glad you like appreciate it enough to go back and do that. Yeah, and I think you know, if you like one of them, yeah, there'll be a lot there in the other
Oh,
albums
hell
for
yeah.
you like too. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm glad you dug it.
Yeah, thank you for your time, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Right on. Thanks. You too.
Cheers.
Cheers.